The following is a paid commercial announcement. The ideas and opinions addressed in this show do not reflect the views of WKBK or Saga Communications. From the Davis Oil and Propane Company studios, it's time for Financial Wellness Weekly. The opinions voiced in this broadcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Time now for Financial Wellness Weekly on WKBK.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through LPL Enterprise, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC, and affiliate of LPL Financial. Financial professionals are licensed insurance agents of Prudential. These financial professionals are permitted to brand under Prudential. LPLE and LPL Financial are not affiliated with Chartered Financial Services or Prudential. Individual tax and legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. There's no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal.
Welcome to Financial Wellness Weekly on Keens News Station WKBK. We will be starting today introducing the members sitting here as well as Chartered Financial Services. I am Nina Benton.
Liz Newcomb.
Sarah Benton Smedley.
Excellent. And we are all part of the Chartered Financial Planning team. We are a planning firm that was founded in 1986 by my husband, John Benton. The firm has grown through the decades from a solo insurance advisor practice to a team of focused advisors on holistic life planning. We're a team of 7 advisors, 5 of whom are certified financial planners. Sarah, Liz, and I are all certified financial planners. We help our clients with everything in their lives. We guide them through complex financial decisions and navigate their nuanced needs. In this show, we will be starting with the basics of how to get your financial house in order, and we will be moving along to very complex topics such as estate planning. I think we should probably introduce each other now and tell a little bit about each other.
Yeah.
Would that be good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Liz, why don't you start?
Sure. Well, I'm a Keene native. I was born and raised here until I was 9. We're going way back. And when I grew up, I swore I would never go into finance.
How'd that work for you?
My dad was a financial planner, and I thought it was so boring. I said, I'll never sit at a desk and do this all day. So I majored in history, had no idea what I wanted to do when I graduated, moved to New York City, spent some time working as a nanny and other low-paying customer service jobs, got married very young, had my children very young, and then began working as a real estate agent while staying home with the kids for the first few years. It was only really after going through a divorce and realizing that I needed to find something stable with benefits to be able to provide for myself and the kids that I sort of fell into a career in finance. As I mentioned, my dad was a financial planner. So when I moved back to New Hampshire in early 2017 and was sending out 30 different job applications, he said, why don't you consider financial planning? I think you could pass those exams. And so I said, okay, I could do anything for a while. And once I got into it, I realized that I really loved helping people. And the more that I learned and became more financially successful myself, the more I really wanted to share that with others, and became really passionate about helping others create plans to really help them accomplish the goals that they envision for themselves and their families. So that's a little bit about my background and how I ended up working in finance. For me, I love trying to make complex financial concepts approachable. I love the planning part, and I especially enjoy working with women investors, business owners, and folks who are getting ready to retire and asking themselves, can I? Do I have enough saved?
It's a big question.
Yeah. It's scary. And then on a personal note, I have 2 kids who are 12 and 13. My son is soccer obsessed, and he plays year round on multiple teams.
A lot of travel for that, isn't there?
It certainly is, yes. He's involved in the field house in Swansea. He also does some various other leagues across the state and down at Gillette Stadium as well in the winter. And my daughter takes dance classes at Moco Arts right here in Keene. So that keeps us busy, and it's a lot of fun to watch her. And I play soccer too, actually, which when I can find a few.
And you run also, right?
I do run.
Yep.
I did a half marathon with my boyfriend last year. We love to hike, especially having Mount Monadnock nearby and so many amazing just trails and places to be outdoors in this area. We try to sneak up to the White Mountains whenever we can. I've made my way through 33 of the 48 4,000 footers in New Hampshire.
Amazing. Good for you.
So when's 34?
Oh my gosh. Well, probably May. My best friend Juana's coming up.
This year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And then aside from that, I'm very involved in my church here in town. And I'm also on the board of Monadnock Music, which is a wonderful local nonprofit bringing classical music to the towns and villages of the Monadnock region. So that's a little bit about me. I have chickens. I try to keep my plants alive, and that's about it. But Sarah, tell us more about you.
Yeah, so I am a certified financial planner, as we know, and I work with clients in all life stages. I really do focus on the education side of things, really. Everything starts from there. So when we work with clients, it's not just figuring out what their needs are and guiding them through that, but it's educating them through that process as well. Mm-hmm. We work with clients in every life stage. So whether they're just starting their career, whether they're building a family, entering retirement, leaving a legacy, those are really our clients of all life stages. I do everything from the planning, just as Liz does, of course, but all of the protection strategies as well, making sure we're really rounding out our clients' lives. I have a beautiful family. I have a husband. His name is Kevin. I have a 3-year-old daughter, Emma. I have a 22-month-old Olivia. Soon she'll be 2, so I can stop counting the months. And we're really busy on the weekends. We have
a dog,
Goose. His name is Goose. He's a cattle dog. He truly is crazy. But our weekends are filled of, swim lessons, which we're swimming obsessed in our household, which is I'm fine with. It's an easy sport for us to do. Not a lot of traveling.
Lots of lakes up here for them to swim in this summer.
Exactly.
We happen to live on one, so that will be helpful.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, so we're doing the swimming. We're taking our dog. We're doing all that fun stuff on the weekends. So we have a very busy, fulfilled calendar, just as Liz does. But yeah, so that's a little bit about what I do from a work perspective. That's my family life. From a personal perspective, I love anything involving art. So I'm a painter.
Sarah's a fabulous artist.
I don't know if I would call myself an artist, but
great.
I love to paint.
What's your
medium? If you ever visit my house, you'll see tons of pictures that she's painted that will be hanging all over.
Really? Nothing too fancy. I'm acrylic, not fancy. Okay. I don't go fancy schmancy with the oil painting. I mean, I could, but I don't know if that's my forte. But yeah, so I love to paint. Not that I'm doing a lot of it lately. And yeah, there are a lot of beautiful parks in our area, and taking our dog out and just playing Frisbee. He could play Frisbee for hours.
Oh, he's a good catcher.
So that's me. Nina, why don't you tell me a little bit about you?
All right. I am Nina Benton. We were just speaking that I have actually been in this field now. This is my 30th year.
Woo!
I know. Yeah, it's hard to believe. Prior to joining the financial services world, which my husband actually dragged me into. By the way, he's been in it now for 40 years, and John Benton heads our team. I was a nurse practitioner, pediatric certified nurse practitioner for 15 years. And that actually gave me my foundation of understanding how to relieve stress in people. I think fiscal and financial health are truly correlated. And in order to reduce stress, you have to educate people. Once we know the impact of our choices and how we can make those choices, we are ready to move forward. So I made it my objective to train people, to teach people about everything that is available so that they understood the impact of a choice that they made. And as you'll hear me say many times, always start with the end in mind. So when I work with a client, I ask them, what is it that you are intending for this to do for you? What do you want your life to look like? That's something that is paramount to the accomplishment and to the efficiency of it all. So a little personal note, I have been married now for 38 years to John. Thank you. And we just celebrated an anniversary. And in case you haven't guessed, Sarah Smedley is my younger daughter, and Emily Fissel is my older daughter. She's not here right now, but they are both on our team. And they are both certified financial planners as well. So we recently have moved. I am originally from New York. We have lived in New Jersey for 32 years. And we just moved to New Hampshire, to Spofford. And we live on the lake. And Liz actually helped us with moving a second office now we have. We have one in New Jersey where Sarah is housed. And Emily is also housed there. And now Liz and some other team members are housed in our Keene office on Washington Street. So that was a fabulous intro to Liz, the realtor. We knew Liz, the investment professional. And so we're one big happy family. And I look forward to sharing information. And I think we can just start. A fabulous way to start will be to talk about, to me, one of the most important components of understanding investments is understanding what we call the tax triangle.
Yes.
And it speaks to understanding how money gets put into accounts from a tax perspective, how money grows in those accounts, and how money is taxed when the money is taken out. So at all stages of life, and how then to put that into a bucket for a time frame use to understand. And it gives us tax flexibility. If we're speaking about retirement, nothing is more powerful than having tax flexibility, meaning understanding how different investments will be taxed at different tax rates throughout your life. What do you guys think about that?
I think it all comes back to the goal, like you said, Nina. If you've got 30 years to go, then, what type of account you put that in and how you want that to be treated from a tax standpoint is going to be very different than money that you need in 3 years for a home purchase.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the average investor has a hard time digesting that our money can be taxed in 3 ways. And if we don't fully understand that, as Nina was saying at the beginning, there can be stress there, or just not knowing leads to stress, right?
Right. Sarah, why don't you tell us about the 3 different ways that money can be taxed?
Sure. So we have 3 different buckets, right? We have non-qualified assets, we have pre-tax assets, and then we ultimately also have after-tax assets. And each of these different buckets can be used for different purposes. If we're thinking primarily of retirement, obviously we want flexibility in retirement, right? So what comes with that? What comes with that flexibility? Well, it's having our money be taxed differently. In non-qualified accounts, we're going to have these assets where they're not getting the benefit of tax-deferred growth like our pre-tax and after-tax accounts have. And because of that, we get flexibility, right? Anytime the IRS doesn't give us any red tape, they're going to give us that flexibility. But anytime they do give us a benefit like tax deferred growth in our pre-tax or after-tax, there's going to be some red tape, which we'll go through together.
So when you say flexibility, you mean that it's more liquid, that money in non-qualified accounts, people can get their hands on it, like my bank account. I can put money in, take money out, doesn't have to sit there for a period of time. But isn't there a period of time, Liz, that money does have to sit in that account in order to impact its tax upon distribution?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned bank accounts, but there are also brokerage type of accounts where you might invest in stocks and other sorts of investments, which are not necessarily IRA or retirement accounts specifically. And in those types of accounts, if you hold your investments for at least 12 months, then the money, when it comes out, if it has grown, the growth part is only going to be taxable based on capital gains rates, which are typically much more favorable than ordinary income rates for most people. However, if you don't wait the 12 months, then you are going to be taxed at a higher rate.
So if I have a 3-month or a 6-month or a 9-month CD, that interest then would still be taxed at the ordinary income.
Right. That's short term.
But what if it's a 12-month CD?
Yeah. As long as it's 12 months and 1 day or longer, you get the benefit of a long-term capital gains tax.
That's good to know.
Right. So that's important for us. But then we have the pre-tax accounts, right? This is where the average American historically has saved for their retirement. So most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time you're getting a deduction when you're putting your money into that account. It's lowering your taxable income today. And people like that. They say, okay, I don't need to pay the tax today. That's great. The money grows tax deferred inside. And then when you go to take money out in retirement, it's taxed at whatever the federal and state, if it applies, tax rates apply, right? But the problem there,
those are the highest rates.
Those
right?
are the highest rates.
Typically, yeah.
Not to mention, what are those tax rates going to be when you're actually retiring?
No one knows.
Nobody knows, right? People think usually that it's going to be a lower tax rate. When I retire, it's going to be lower.
You know, maybe only a few people in the room that I'm in will remember this, but during the Kennedy administration, tax rates were as high as 50%.
Yeah.
You know, right now, it doesn't feel like it. We are in a low tax environment. The highest tax rate is 37%. That's considered low. But any administration can change it at any time, as Sarah said. So you have no clue one day to the next, 1 year to the next, how dollars would be taxed as they come out.
Mm-hmm. And that's not to say don't go for the tax-deferred growth, but
No.
I think it definitely speaks to the need for flexibility and having money in different types of accounts so that you give yourself some leverage and some choice when you get there and it's time to take that money out.
And doesn't that go, Sarah, to the next tax-deferred account that we have?
Yeah, then we have the after-tax accounts, right? So the after-tax are usually the accounts that are Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, maybe an HSA, cash value life insurance, right? These are accounts where when we go to take a distribution, we're usually not going to pay any tax on that distribution. Now, when we're putting money in, we're not getting any deduction, unlike our pre-tax accounts, right? So if I put money into that account, it's keeping my taxable income the same amount through the year.
Can I pause you?
Yeah.
Could you just sort of explain what a deduction means for people
Yeah.
who maybe hear the word all the time but
Yeah.
don't really?
In simple terms, right, just putting it very simply, if I'm getting a deduction, it's lowering my income for the year, which then ultimately will reduce my tax, right? So if I'm making $75,000 a year, I put $10,000 into my retirement account. Good for me. I'm being a good saver. And if it's a pre-tax account, right, where I get that deduction, I'm lowering my taxable income by $10,000. So instead of being $75,000 reported to the IRS, it's now going to be $65,000. And to a lot of Americans, that's that's attractive to me. That's really attractive. But I do have to understand that compromise where I'm not being taxed today, but I am going to be taxed tomorrow. And we don't know where the future of taxes is going. We're in a low tax environment. Where is the future going to be?
And it also may be where people save the most. So for that pre-tax pool, we're talking about individual IRAs, perhaps, the 401ks through jobs, and maybe simple IRAs or SEPs or other things like that. And then when you are in retirement, see, I'm going to be talking mostly about retirement because I'm closer to that than many of you. And so it's top of mind for me. But the problem with that, only having that type of an account, is that now for me, when I go to take my money out, because that's the money that I have to live on, every penny of it is going to be taxed at whatever the tax rate is in that year. And in these accounts also, the government required minimum distributions. So now, based on your birth year, though, there are two different ages. So if you're born up to 1959, the required minimum distribution age is 73. And if you're born after that, it's 75. So for me, at 73, I have to start taking a certain amount, and that amount goes up every year. The percentage goes up that I'm required to take out. And I have absolutely no control over that and how that will be taxed. And as a retiree, that's not great for me. So how can I remedy that? What would be things maybe to my younger colleagues and clients that you might say to them to help with that situation? What are the other two type of accounts that we should be building?
You should absolutely be considering getting some money into Roth. If you're eligible for Roth IRA contributions, great. Or if you are able to have that option within your 401k plan through work, maybe splitting your contributions, some tax deferred, some Roth. Also you mentioned HSAs earlier. That's a great way if your healthcare plan offers it to be able to put money into an account specifically for medical needs.
Right. For those health savings accounts, you have to have a high deductible health plan, right?
Exactly.
So
Not
that's the eligibility.
eligible.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Sarah, are you able to give us the amounts that we're able to put into the 401ks and the IRAs this year?
Yeah, so those numbers just changed. So for 2026, you can be doing a base contribution into your employer plan of $24,500. If you're older than 50, they allow you to do a catch-up, right? Save more. So if you're older than 50, you can do an $8,000 catch-up. They have this new super catch-up that was introduced where if you're between the ages of 60 and 63, it's an additional $11,250. So you can be doing a lot through an employer plan.
Right.
Outside of an employer, you can be doing the base contribution in an IRA of $7,500 with a catch-up when you're 50 and older of $1,100. Now, as Liz was mentioning, if you have a Roth 401k through your employer, there is no income restriction. Anybody can contribute to that account, which I think people get confused, right? People are saying, oh, I'm income ineligible.
Exactly.
No, that's not the case inside of your employer plan. Outside of an employer plan, if you're a married filing jointly filer, if you earn less than $252,000, you're eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA. If you're a single tax filer and you earn less than $168,000, you're eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA. If you're above those thresholds, you're not eligible, but you can do things like backdoors, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point in the future.
Or things like that. Yeah, that will be more of a complex topic for another discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but these are things that we really have to think about because when we're working through our savings, if we know how we're going to be taxed in the future and that Roth accounts have no tax, and that Roth accounts have no required minimum distributions.
Right.
Those
That's
are
big.
things that we want for flexibility.
Yes.
And also for the option of maybe leaving money to our kids without them having to worry about the taxes.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other way that we really get that is through life insurance, right? Having completely
cash value life insurance, tax-free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
and
important.
HSAs if you're building the money now. But the thing with that is you have to then also have your liquid reserves, that non-qualified account, to be able to pay for the out-of-pocket for the medical to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I just want to mention as well, which I don't think a lot of people are fully aware of, is that our Medicare premiums, and yes, I hope I'm not breaking the news that we have to pay for Medicare, but our Medicare
65,
premiums when we're
right.
65 and older are based on our taxable income from 2 years prior. So what does that mean as we're taking distributions from our pre-tax accounts?
We might be paying more for our medical.
Exactly.
Right.
Whereas Roth does not impact that, right? So there are so many ways that we can impact our retirement for the future. And this is one, thinking critically about this tax triangle, non-qualified, pre-tax, after-tax money.
Right.
These are the three accounts that we have. How are we really going to maximize it?
Yeah. Obviously, we need to have, ideally, in an ideal world, we would have non-qualified for liquid reserves and for having capital gains taxes later on, and Roth accounts or cash value life insurance or HSAs, and as we'll talk about in a little bit, 529 accounts for our buckets to be the most tax efficient.
Yeah. Yeah. Having that flexibility really gives retirees the most bang for their buck and benefit, right?
Absolutely.
We'll be back in a couple minutes. You're listening to Financial Wellness Weekly on WKBK with Chartered Financial Services. I'm Liz Newcomb.
And I'm Sarah Benton Smedley.
And I'm Nina Benton. Welcome back.
A little bit ago, we were talking about the different types of investment accounts and ways that you can save money and how they're treated differently from a tax standpoint. And I thought that would be a great segue into saving for education, which is one of those types of accounts that does have some special tax benefits.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a little bit of an intro as to what 529s are, Sarah?
Yeah, 529 plans. They are the most tax-preferred way for somebody to save for their child's college education. And so if we're talking about tax benefit and we want those tax benefits and we're thinking our child's going to go to a school or a higher education, 529 plans are really where we want to be putting our dollars, right? So what is that tax benefit that we get from a 529 plan? Well, some states will give you a tax deduction for the contribution. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The account and the investments inside grow tax deferred. And then when you go to take the money out for qualified education expense, the money comes out completely tax-free.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
There's no account right now that does that for you for education. So this is where we want our dollars if we're getting the tax benefit.
Absolutely.
But people are nervous, though, about doing that in case their child doesn't go to school or if they get scholarships or other things like that, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they?
There are some, absolutely. I think that is a big hesitation, but I think it's really important to know that you don't have to just use this money for that one child who decided not to go to college. You could transfer the funds to another beneficiary who's a family member of that child who doesn't even have to be a child. This money can be used for grad school, certification programs.
So I could go back to school?
You certainly could.
Not that I want to.
Yeah, and there's another really special new provision that just came out. Sarah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so in 2024, the new tax code change allowed for unused money in a 529 plan to be rolled for the benefit of that beneficiary into a Roth IRA. Now, of course, there are stipulations, but it takes away, and we'll talk about those in a second, but it takes away some of that concern and stress of a parent that says, well, I'm putting all this money away from them, and what if they don't decide to go to school or they get a full ride and we have this money inside? Well, this new provision allows you to take up to $35,000 per beneficiary and roll it into a Roth IRA for them. Now, really think about the tax benefit here. We're really trying to hit home the tax benefits, right? So really think about it, right? All of these years, the money has been sitting inside of this 529 plan, growing tax deferred. You're not paying tax on it. And then if they don't need it or there's extra left over, you can roll up to $35,000 into a Roth where they also will get the benefit of tax deferred growth until they go to take that money out for their retirement ultimately. And again, tax-free distribution.
Tax-free distribution, yeah.
Let's break that down for a second, if you don't mind, though, because some people can get very confused about putting the $35,000 into a Roth. You can't do that all at once. There are rules, as always, on every single step, right? So how would we do that? What does that look like, Liz?
Well, it follows the usual Roth IRA contribution limits, which for 2026, for folks under the age of 50, is $7,500 per year. And for over the age of 50, $8,600 per year. And you also have to have earned income. So, each year, is assuming that you're working and earning at least as much as those amounts I just mentioned.
So this is the child who has to have that earned income. It's not the parent whose account it is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another big catch that people sometimes, I think, don't understand.
Right, because the parent is the custodian of the account and they're usually the ones in charge of the account, but it's the beneficiary, which is most often a child, who now typically would have grown up and maybe would be in their 20s or 30s and hopefully has a job. And yes, so this situation allows them to take those unused funds and get them into a Roth. Yep.
Now, that account does have to have been open for 15 years, but hopefully we are saving early and often for our child's education.
That's another push, isn't it, then, is once you have a child, as soon as possible, open one of these accounts. And anyone can contribute, right? Exactly. So when you first have a child, money is very tight. And so perhaps grandma and grandpa or gifts could go into an account to open that for them.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And there are some special perks about that, too, now that you mention it, Nina. If the grandparent opens up the account for the grandchild, then that's not going to negatively impact eligibility for college scholarships and grants. And
so if the parent owns it, it could.
it could impact financial aid.
Okay. So that would be an important decision to make and things to talk about. Okay.
Yeah, there's still also an exclusion ratio, which I think can be helpful for parents to digest. So if they're applying for the different FAFSA type of legal aid, financial aid, they can have an exclusion amount of the 529. So the full 529 is not counted 100% against the child if the parent owns it. But even better if a grandparent owns it, right? Because then it's not included at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe we should also just talk about some of those qualified education expenses. What sorts of things can you spend 529 money on?
Yeah. Yeah, well, really, it's really any higher education expense, quite frankly, but they did make some new allowances in that where it can also be used for primary education with the Tax Cut and Job Act.
Or private high school even.
There you go.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it can go towards books and school supplies, room and board, equipment needed for education, such as computers, software, special needs and accessibility equipment for students as well.
So it's quite a bit that
a lot of different
you
things.
can do that. Yeah, that's good.
I also want to talk about how we really get this going. So people say to me, okay, I think I know I'm supposed to be doing this 529 plan, but where do I start? What's the best way to kind of open an account? And do I have to live in a certain state or go to a certain school? So Liz, tell me a little bit about, how a 529 plan works in terms of picking the right one for you.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is that there are no limitations on which state's plan that you use. So every state administers its own 529 plan. And if you're in a state where you are going to be able to get a tax deduction for making a contribution into the plan, then perhaps it makes sense to go with your state's plan. But if not, you can really choose from any plan you like. What was that website you were mentioning, Sarah? That's a great resource.
Yeah, it's savingforcollege.com. I love that site because it compares all of the state's 529 plans. As Liz was saying, every state has one. So how do you know which is the right one to pick? You can pick and set certain filters. What fees apply to which states? Which one has the best 3-year performance, 5-year performance? You can compare.
Or if you like specific investments.
Or specific
different
or
companies.
if you want an advisor.
Right.
So there are some plans which allow an advisor to help you set it up and give guidance, and others that you can do completely on your own.
Yeah.
And through that site as well, right? It leads you through there. Through
And they have
the links.
calculators too to see, okay, if my daughter's 5 and I haven't saved yet, unfortunately, how much do I have to save monthly to be able to get to the financial
Whatever a
goal
target is,
that I
Yeah,
want?
Yeah. And the nice thing is that they offer target plans, target mutual funds that line up specifically with the year in which your child would be starting college.
Right.
So it takes the guesswork out of it a little bit, and those funds start growthier and get a little bit more conservative as it's time to start using them.
Right. So it's really great for average investors, what you're saying, because
You don't have
average,
to know. You don't have to. It's kind of a point and click.
Exactly.
Kind of a thing.
Now, an advisor could help you with the asset allocation if they're guiding you. But if you're doing it on your own and your roadblock is entering because you don't know the right investment, those target date funds getting you closer to the college funding year is going to just really allow you to kind of set it and forget it, contribute and add to those funds over time and know that they're going to de-risk as you get closer.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wanted to just mention one important thing to know. I had a client recently who said, I have these 529s for my kids, and I'm happy to save a bunch in there every year for them, but I don't really want them to take it for granted. I don't necessarily want them to know that I'm going to help pay for college. So I was thinking, I would allow them to take out loans, and then I would use the 529 funds to pay the loans off after. And I said, wait a second, you can only use up to $10,000 on student loan debt repayment. So
it's still a nice improvement,
yes,
I think.
It is.
It still is a flexibility because that was changed through the
that
Tax Cut
wasn't
and
there
Jobs
before.
Act. But it's up to 10. And most people that are taking loans
a
are
lot
taking
more than
$10,000.
$10,000.
Right.
Yes. So don't wait if you do have the funds in there and your child is going to be going to college or needing those funds. Use them when they're in school.
Yeah.
But let's talk about if, for example, in that case for that client, let's say that she wanted to use some of what she put away. She was a great saver. She put money away, and now she only wants to give either, let's say, half of it to be used for that person. There are several things that she could do after the fact. So if there are other children or herself, as you had mentioned earlier, Liz, that she could change the beneficiary on the account after she used it, and then
Absolutely.
it could continue to grow. Let's say what some people, some of my clients who have saved for their children, and either the child gets a scholarship or they had other funding, they could change the beneficiary and make it themselves if they want. There is no time limit on these 529. So
Great point, Nina.
they could wait for a grandchild to be born and then put it for the grandchild. Imagine, I mean, Sarah, you were talking about the length of time to let something sit and grow.
Compounding.
I mean,
benefit.
we are talking years and years, and most grandparents, even though for younger people you're not thinking about this, but most grandparents want to help with the grandchildren's something, be it education or whatever.
Yep.
So this is a fabulous tool. And I'm going to chime in and say one more thing before I give it back to you two ladies. And from an estate planning perspective,
Yes.
529 plans are one of the only tools that you can use where if I were to set up a 529 for my children or grandchildren and there is a maximum amount of funding per plan. It's a lot of money, but if let's say I were fortunate enough to be able to maximally fund it and maybe put in $325,000 into this plan, it gets, even if I am the trustee on it, it cuts out of my estate. It's no longer in my estate. So when I pass away, it's not included in my estate anymore, yet I still maintain control over it. It's the only account, typically, in order for it not to be counted in your estate, you have to give up and relinquish control over something.
Right.
So this is the only place where you can still control it, and yet it's taken out of your estate.
Still pulling the strings,
Fabulous.
but giving it and being able to control how it's invested and who ultimately is the beneficiary.
So for our wealthy clients who have grandchildren and children, nieces and nephews,
And
and
they're
are
concerned
looking
about the estate
taxes. And although the estate exemption is very high, we can talk about that in another session. But right now, they can do this and open these accounts, have full control over them, and have it be taken out of their estate.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Yep. Now, what happens if they don't use the money for education or apprenticeships or credentialed programs, and they want to use it for something else?
Yeah.
What happens? How is it treated from a tax standpoint?
I want to say this is the primary reason why people are hesitant about opening a 529 plan. And that's because if you put money into a 529 plan and then you take the money out for a non-educational expense, you're going to have a penalty plus tax on the distribution.
On the growth
that
of the money has made.
Exactly. But I mean, that can be hefty. That penalty is a 10% penalty plus tax on the growth. So it's not to say that you can't take the money out. You can, right? But we really want to have the money in these accounts earmarked specifically for education while keeping in mind that we do have these new flexibilities that we've discussed, right? We can change beneficiaries in the future. We also can roll up to $35,000 per beneficiary into a Roth IRA for their benefit, right? So yes, there's this restriction of not being able to take money out for non-educational expense, but the tax benefit and the flexibility of rolling it really, I think, outweigh that negative. I think it's important for us to really think about it, right? We were harping earlier about the tax benefits and the impacts of our investment decisions, and I think that really matters. So just to kind of go back to the beginning, it does not matter what state you live in. It does not matter where your child decides to go to school. You can pick any state's plan. I can live in the state of New Jersey. My plan is the California plan, and my daughter goes to school in New Hampshire. It does not matter. You still get those wonderful tax benefits. I will just mention also, we talked about that there could be a deduction for a contribution, right? Now, every state is different, and usually the way this works is the state that you live in, if you select their plan, you may be able to get a deduction for the contribution. Every state is different, right? So New Hampshire doesn't have any type of deduction because, right, we don't have any.
No income tax.
But, in New York, in New Jersey, if your income is below certain thresholds, you could get a deduction for living in that state and picking that state's plan. So that really should be part of your consideration and selection process when you're working through, is this right for me? Which plan is right for me? You should research if you get any tax benefit, because that even just extends it even further, right? If I get a deduction on the contribution and the money's growing tax deferred and I get no tax on the way out, triple tax advantage, right?
Yeah.
So that's really important for us to focus on.
Yeah. And one last thing we forgot to mention is that there are also prepaid tuition plans for in-state education, which also falls under the 529. So if you think that your child is going to go to school in-state and you want to lock in the current tuition rates for future attendance at state schools, then you could add money to the prepaid tuition plan and control the impact of inflation that way.
So one of the caveats there, though, of course, is that even if you do that, that does not guarantee admission for that child to that school. So it's a gamble.
It is
that you're taking, because it is specific to that school. You lose the money if the child doesn't go there. You can't do anything else. So that's, a lot of people may be reluctant about that. There is one thing I did want to circle back on about 529s, because we did talk about the savingforcollege.com site, and if you wanted to do this by yourself, one of the tips also is if you're the owner if you're the trustee, so you wouldn't be the owner, you would be the trustee for the account for the benefit of the beneficiary. We strongly recommend that you set up a successor trustee.
Yes.
We've had instances, unfortunately, where it becomes very complex if there's a young child and the trustee passes away and there is no successor trustee.
And it's very easy. It's like almost adding a beneficiary on the account to add that successor.
It's just checking a box and putting a name down on it. So it's an easy thing to do, and it avoids a lot of hassle down the road.
Great point, Nina.
Yeah, I think it's also important while we're talking and kind of praising 529 plans for us also to talk about, well, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot of people say, okay, well, I get that that's really great from a tax perspective, but tell me what else is out there. How else could a parent be saving? And there are lots of ways. None of them are going to be as tax preferred as we're talking, but there are lots of ways.
Well, there could be one if a parent or an adult, not that we want to do this, but if we're talking about what can we do, right? If I have a Roth IRA and I've held it for at least 5 years and I am more than 50, how old do I have to be?
59
and a half. That's a magic number we'll talk about with retirement. Then I can take money out of my Roth without any tax implications. So I could use that if I wanted to.
Yeah. We like the idea, obviously, of keeping Roth money for yourself for retirement, but it is a flexibility where you could be, if you have the account for 5 years or more, you could take just the earnings out, even if you're not 59 and a half or older, without any tax penalty.
Take the contributions out any time.
Yeah.
Again, not that
the
we're
contribution.
Not that we're recommending this.
Exactly.
We're talking about capability.
Options, flexibility.
Exactly.
Yes.
And building your non-qualified accounts.
Yeah.
This is something to come back to.
Yeah, I do have a lot of clients that will set up a UTMA account, a Uniform Transfer to Minors account, for those situations in which they know it's not quite as tax favorable, and they know that it's not specifically for education, but it gives flexibility where you can save funds for other goals, perhaps a first car or a first home or other types of things that you might want to be able to have that child take advantage of when they're of the age of majority.
Yeah, the UTMA the UTMA, as Liz said so nicely. That UTMA account really can be used for as anything, as long as it's for the benefit of the child, right? So clothes, food, as long as it's for the benefit of that child. So that's a lot of great flexibility, right? Because people say, well, I want to pay for their first car, or I want to pay for their education, but I don't want it earmarked just for one.
The only downside to that parents need to be aware of is come the age of majority, that money is the child's.
Yes.
So they can zero out that account and not tell you what they've done with that money, and they can do whatever they want with it. And it's their right because it's their money.
Yeah. So we want to be aware of that. Hopefully, we're using the money as we need fit while the child is still under the age of majority. And then ultimately, if they do become the age of majority, it switches over to their asset, which they ultimately, as Nina said, could do anything they want with.
Yeah. But it is another account that does offer flexibility, typically good to be used while they're younger.
Yeah. I also have clients that will just earmark in their mind a non-qualified account. So it really has no tie to the client, to the child, right? So it's not a custodial account. It's not a retirement account. Maybe it's a brokerage investment account. Maybe it's a managed
could be stock account,
joint account, a stock account, right?
Maybe where they inherited it from grandma.
Yeah.
And they said, you know what? She would be so happy if we used this stock for little Bella's education.
Yeah. And really, it's just you earmarking it in your mind. Now, of course, there's no benefit from a tax perspective.
Other than capital gains.
Right? The account's still growing tax deferred. When you sell the investment, hopefully you're holding it for more than 12 months and 1 day. So I'm getting that long-term capital gains
Not growing
tax.
tax deferred.
Not growing. Did I say growing tax
Yeah.
deferred? I meant to say it is not, right? So we're not
accounts do not grow tax
we're
deferred.
not getting a tax benefit
You
here.
get that 1099 every year.
But in my mind, that's an account that I have earmarked. So, again, there are no restrictions because it's not tied to the
liquid
child.
Liquid money, non-qualified equals liquid.
So just to recap, what are these accounts? We have obviously the 529, most tax efficient. We have, the Roth gives us a little flexibility.
But don't do it.
But you can, right? So that's a second. We have the UTMA, the UTMA accounts, as Liz was mentioning. Then we also have non-qualified accounts that we can earmark in our mind for our children. So
you could also set them up as a trust, which is
Sure.
complicated, but honestly, it's money with
Offers the most
instructions.
protection.
So
Yes.
it gives the most protection. If you know that you want this to be for something specific and you don't want it to just get turned over to the beneficiary at 18 or 21 for them to do whatever they want with, you could establish a trust working with an attorney.
And your financial planner.
And your financial planner, yes. They go hand in hand.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think overarching thing that we should think about here is, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? We're
What's the
doing
goal?
this. Exactly. We're doing this because we're trying to save for our children's education. And unfortunately, this education, the cost is rising generally around 5% per year, which is beyond regular inflation. So with that in mind, we need to have investments on our side, hopefully growing this money for us and our children.
And I'll mention a last strategy that people who have good income typically use is for the years that the children are in college, they earmark, as you said, some accounts, but here they'll earmark a percentage of their income that they would be willing to put during those years, maybe not go on a vacation or maybe do something else for that education itself.
In the actual
years. Yeah. To use that if it's more difficult to save as much throughout the years.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we have the end in mind, we're better able to really focus on what's the proper account. Maybe we're willing to, give up that tax flexibility or tax benefit for more flexibility in another account. Or maybe we want that or need that tax benefit, right? So really thinking about the options and choice that we have will allow us to make that decision a little bit clearer for ourselves.
We will be back next Saturday at noon. This has been Financial Wellness Weekly on WKBK Keene with Chartered Financial Services.